CEOs and salespeople are confident that their opinion is the right one. Are they? Welcome to the CEO and Salesman podcast, where we talk about today's business issues and we'll let you work out who's right. It's me, by the way. Hi, welcome to the CEO and the Salesman podcast. My name's Matthew. My good friend here is Daniel. Welcome back to a conversation. We've tried to explore the problems and challenge and ideas and sort of take different points of view from various perspectives when it comes to small to medium business. So how are you today, Daniel?
I'm awesome, Matt. It's fun to be here. We kind of talked about doing this once a month, but I'm having so much fun. I think we've got into a once a week cadence, yeah? I think
it has, yeah, that's right. So
it's really good. I get to, I think it's very cathartic for me, Matt. I get to express my opinion without somebody trying to beat me up too much. So,
therapy session.
yeah.
Hey, I want to get started with something that we talked about in a previous session. We had a person comment, so thank you for that person comment. We talked about strategy. Yeah, we've actually got comments now. So strategy versus execution, and we said we could put a pin in that. So Daniel, let's start with that. So how do you see the difference between strategy, business strategy, and execution?
Oh boy. I'll tell you what, Matt, never walk into a bar and have this conversation with somebody if you've had a few drinks, right? If you Google this, there's so much content on it. So I'll just talk about, from my perspective, how I've run the businesses I've in and been involved with them. And I think people overly complicate their questions because they sound very fancy as terms. I like to think of strategy in the very abstract form. And I'll say it's a little bit different to when I talk to you. If you're talking about a sale, you'll talk about the strategy you would use on a sale. Right. And
that's right. And the whole world, if all I've got is sales and marketing, the whole world looks like it. I've only got a hammer, so the whole world looks like a nail. I can solve every business problem by doing more sales.
And I think where the arguments come in, there are these purists that go, no, that's a tactic and that's part of your business strategy. And so, well, who cares? Yep. Right. So seriously. But understanding the strategy of your business, not your business plan, is really important. So what makes up your strategy is your vision, mission, and values. That we've talked about that endlessly. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you. But I think there's a higher level, higher calling, right? And what I find it really useful is to say there's only two. This is where we get the comments. There's only two.
No, you mentioned this earlier. There's only two strategies
in the world for business, right? And if you were to dissect every single company, they're either a combination of or purely those two strategies. And the first one is if you compete as a strategy, right? Because if you choose to compete in your market and read Blue Ocean strategy, if you want to understand what that means, if you choose to compete, you got to be better, faster, cheaper. That's your strategy. There's nothing wrong with that. Can you innovate how you make things, do things, provide the service in a way which is much more cost effective? In fact, I should qualify it a little bit. You want to add more value to your customer through being better, faster, cheaper, right? You don't have to be all three things, but that tends to be the core of that. And I think 99% of the SMB world, the small business world, is in that space. They compete. Okay. On the other side of the spectrum is be unique.
Yes.
And then you can set your market terms. And that's really what Blue Ocean strategy is about, the revolution of Blue Ocean. Because if you're Cirque du Soleil, no one competes with Cirque du Soleil.
No. That's right. Or if they do, they're a pale comparison.
That's right. And they've got like 3 or 4 continually running shows at Vegas.
Just in Vegas, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's just in Vegas. It's what they, and that was during a time when circuses were dying as a product.
Yep.
And it's amazing when you think about it. So we can't all be Blue Ocean, but I think keeping your strategic thinking at that level and being honest. I think there's a lot of companies, a lot of people. That's why I say don't go into a pub and talk about it. Yes, we're unique. I go, what do you do? Oh, we do tax services. Okay. So naturally, no. We just do it really fast. We get the refund back really fast. I said, well, you're competing. Nothing wrong with that. H&R Block, you see the ads right, get your returns fast. They're very successful. Yeah, because they've innovated their systems internally to be able to do that. So I think that, and I think, actually I shouldn't say pure play service companies. We talk about Apple a lot. he just chose to be unique, didn't he?
Yeah. Went a different way.
Yeah, he just thought, I don't care what the rest of the world's doing. And everybody since has tried to compete, but they can't because he's a product leader in the industry. So how about you, Matt? I think, does that, oh, I didn't talk about execution, but to me, that's strategy. Then everything else is execution, right? Like,
Yep.
how do you go about it doing that stuff? Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Well, look, I guess that. So for me, where do we do sales, strategy, sales, and marketing? But we're only really looking at making, helping clients make more profit, and that profit is really directed at making more sales to the right people. And that's probably the first thing: is more sales. But we don't want to sell to ordinary customers who don't pay on time, or we don't want to sell to a particular type of market. We want to sell to a group that gives me the uniqueness. So in Tech Talk, we only work with software and technology businesses. And that immediately sets me somewhat unique. I mean, sure, if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find a lot of other people who do just that. But in doing that, it gives me an advantage. It gives me the ability to speak with people like yourself who are really deep in the ERP world. But, I certainly don't have the ERP experience like you do, but, I'm probably 4 or 5 levels above the marketer who is, selling shoes on one day and trying to sell technology services on another. So it gives me that. So I don't compete in price. I don't compete. I only compete when it comes to, I guess, somebody who doesn't understand what I offer. So I've tried to find a niche, and that's given me the ability to be pretty successful.
Yeah, so in a commoditized space, I can tell you I went through so many agencies, man, and they're all offering the same, very similar services. In a commoditized space, you're striving to be unique by carving a vertical. And so any business, any service company, if you head down that direction, other people call it verticalizing your business, that sort of stuff, you're becoming that professional that people will come to. It's like that, remember that the BMW mechanic, right?
Yes.
It's the same thing, right? You're separating yourself from the pack, so that minimizes having to compete on price, better, faster, cheaper, right? And I got so many proposals. We can do SEO and guarantee this 1,000 number of this, and we'll do that, and we do it out of India. Right, nothing wrong to do it out of India, but that's just a low labour cost, and you would never talk to those people, and they would never understand your business. So, if that's what you want, go for it.
Yeah. And the thing is, if the business knows exactly what they want and they've got the management capability to deal with those lower cost providers, then that's a valid way to go, because all you're looking for is hands on keyboards. All it is the activity, and the activity can be measured by a number of whatevers an hour. As soon as you need to start thinking more strategically or more intuitively when it comes to a sale or a piece of marketing and how you actually attract the market, then, and if you don't have the capability in the business, then, and expecting somebody at a low cost space who are only typically paid by hands on keyboards per hour, it's unreasonable to expect that those providers can give you what you want when it comes to business. So if you've got the management capability and everything else sorted out, and all you need is hands on keyboards, button pushing, that is a valid way to go. Everything else, we've really got challenges.
Yeah, I just want to re-emphasize something you just said there, because we have the same challenge when we're talking to prospective customers, and always gets back to a rate. What am I getting, right, for that rate? And then we literally had the CEO say to us, well, I've got family members in India, they can do it at a fraction of the price, so unless you match that price, I'm not doing the contract with you. And I said, great, go for it. And a year and a half later, they've come back to us, and nothing's working the way they want it to work, because what they didn't do was put the expertise in between the business and that service. Someone who's very good, both the company and how to do an EP. It'd be the same for you, man. Like, if they wanted to if customers wanted to replace you, they have to bring you into the company, and to manage these cheaper resources, right? That's what's crazy about it. So I think small and medium customers are larger. But what we find when you get to a certain size of business, they tend to bring those people in because they can afford it.
Yeah, and that's why you need that management layer to be able to deal with that person. And just saying, oh, well, I'll buy one marketing. You can't just buy it off the shelf and then implement it into your business, plug it in, screw it in like a light bulb, and now you've got marketing, or now you've got sales. Because Sales is a performance art. And this is where, sort of circling back to CRMs, is it's hard to put a number in a CRM about trust. It's hard to put a number and this is, we talked about how CRM projects fail because actually what they want is more sales, but they've done a lot of measurement, and the old marketing, also old management, what you can measure, you can manage, but you can manage and measure activity, not trust or the things that go into a sale that drives a person to take action. Sort of like, the iPhone that I've got. I haven't bought a 14 yet, but I've got the 13 Pro. Spent a pile of money on.
Don't do it. I'm a Google Android man.
Oh no! Every time I pick up an Android, I play with it for 2 seconds and go, oh, that's too hard.
Every time I pick up an Apple, I feel like I'm selling my soul. There's no escape.
Come to the dark side. So that's the thing. So how do they continue to hold their position? Well, first of all, it's a walled garden. It's a beautiful walled garden, but it's a walled garden nonetheless. And you can only get iOS on Apple, where I can go down to JB Hi-Fi and get a $89 thing out of China that runs Android. Probably not very well, but it still runs it. And so I think that the problem there is user experience, and that's why those sort of products are a race to the bottom, circling back to our better, faster, cheaper. Yeah,
but by far, though, Apple is the dominant device, right? There's no question about that. However, Android, I think it's about 60 to 70% of the market, because of all the different devices you buy it on.
Yes.
And the people that are... I really like Apple products, by the way. I joke about it, but it's the experience of buying an Apple product, right? But I've got to say, I think the whole market is catching up. Like, Apple used to be very well known for its unboxing experience. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And there's even YouTube channels started off because of Apple's unboxing experience. And then the mobiles you used to buy from an Android, you get it in a plastic bag, right? That was just a little around in a bit. But now you open up a Samsung box. Oh my God, it is an experience. So I do think, from that point of view, they're catching up, and the products are obviously become commoditized. They all make calls, they all do video, they all do email, right? And they all have an app store. So so it really gets back down to personal preference. But I think
I'm running a Windows computer. A Microsoft computer, and the unboxing experience. But my wife and I both bought our laptops at exactly the same time. Well, within a week of each other. She bought a Mac, and the reason she's got a Mac is a quick aside. I got caught up in the excitement of Steve Jobs and his great showmanship, and I went to the Mac store and bought the giant screen Mac with the keyboard and the scratch pad and the mouse, and spent $5,000. Within about half an hour of using it, because I've been started my first tech business when I was 22, so I've been using a PC forever. I couldn't do control, I couldn't use the alt tabs, and I couldn't use all of the things that I would normally use. And I said to my wife, "This thing's going to get hurled out the window in about a minute." She goes, "Oh, I'll take it." She now loves her. This is 10 years later. She loves her Mac. I've gone back to a PC. But the point of my story is, we both bought our computers at the same time. The unboxing experience was almost exactly the same. The profile, the use, because it's an OEM, both of them are now really similar. I'd really challenge anybody who genuinely, dispassionately can say this is a better product or this is a better experience than the other.
Preference. Yeah, what's really interesting though, and this is the thing about Apple. If you dig deep, they changed the direction of both Intel and Microsoft in unbelievable ways. That's not really, well, it's probably appreciated by everybody in the marketplace, but not us little people. For that, because remember, Apple products, they were doing their own chips, and Intel, it was DOS, Microsoft, and they were doing all the other all the rapid processing chips. So I think was a job. I can't remember who the CEO was at Apple at the time. They did a deal with Intel. You remember that?
Yeah.
When they started doing Apple on Intel chips, right? That bought them enough stay in the marketplace that they could do their own chip designs on the ARM technology. Right? It's unbelievable, right? The power difference between the two. So that's an amazing play. Microsoft used to have a Microsoft phone. Do you remember those?
Yep.
Yeah, mobile phone.
About 5 minutes.
Yeah, and it felt like 5 minutes. Now, you can't tell me they couldn't do it faster and cheap because they're a massive titan of industry and they could produce those phones. Couldn't sell them.
Yeah.
But what they're attempting to do was lock in everybody on the Outlook, the productivity products onto that phone. And they weren't letting it play well with anything else. And they didn't say that outright, but you trying to get your Outlook onto your Safari, onto your Safari browser was never going to happen. Because they failed that, they said, right, our point of product leadership is now all platforms.
Yes.
Yeah, so all the Microsoft products now work on all platforms, and there was a massive pivot for them because they got back to their actual, not rather being a hardware company because there's lots of services, a good product, but they were all about the actual ecosystem of the Microsoft productivity tools and dots. So anyway, I found that's a fascinating segue.
What's interesting is I just remembered that when I bought that huge $5,000 machine, I had to install and buy another program called Parallels. Then I needed to buy Windows, and it was just
So you're not running Windows virtually on your Mac anyway. So
it was ridiculous. So actually, this brings me to another topic that I thought was interesting to talk about is pricing. And, we talked about that briefly earlier, briefly in our previous conversations. And so what do you think about pricing when it comes to, in both our businesses, we offer services. How I guess, sensitive do you think the market is to price?
Oh boy! Thank you. Complex. I'm going to talk about that now. No, I'll keep it short because I know you've got some good opinions on this too, Matt. I think if you're in a service business and you're moving towards being unique, then ideally you're testing your price limit regularly, right? Everybody makes this assumption that you should be going down. What you want to do is segment your services so you can have some higher, some cheaper, some low, right? So that's an ideal outcome for a service business. And then there's the whole strategies around if you land on the low service and expand right into the premium services. So that's one tactic. However, I've just experienced something in our industry, and where there's solutions that are considered premium solutions, and the major competitor is all of a sudden 1/3 the price, Matt.
Right.
1/3. It's like I'm pretty good at value selling. I can't close the gap on 2/3. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just it was a shock to see it and hear and actually to verify it. We had heard about it, but it's not just our industry. I think that's happening across the board. And what do you do, man? Like when that happens, that's my question to you. What do you do as a business? Then the third dimension to all of that, we may or may not be in a recession. It's like Schrodinger's cat, right? We don't know. It's a very quantum experience. We kind of need to behave like we're in a recession, but we may not be in a recession. So what does that do to pricing as well? I think they're all the things that are on the CEO's mind, really. Ideally it is.
That's right. Look, so I don't have experience in my own businesses selling into a marketplace that has reduced the price. I actually, in my very first software business, we had a salesperson steal a bunch of leads, go across to the competition. They essentially took our strategy, our marketing material, and 400 or 500 qualified leads to the competition, and then they they attempted to undercut us. And there was a conversation around the sales room as we should also undercut. We should offer lower price, and so what we did there is we actually offered less services for less money for those people who were price sensitive. But actually, what I really did was I put the price up. To create a greater gap between us and the competition, because then it became a question of, and maybe it was a bit of arrogance from my behalf. We only had six people in the sales room plus me, and so I would ask a question of a client, and I'd build trust and I'd build understanding and understood where the client was from. So I simply said, "Look, Mr. Jones, if they genuinely are as good as what we are, wouldn't they be charging the same money?" And I know that sounds a bit of like a psychological trick, but often the people who were value-led in their business, they would say, well, I will go with the premium product, premium service, and funnily enough, we stuck around longer and provided greater levels of service than the other people because they burned out. They didn't have the ability to stay around. Now with so in one side, and also every single time we put the price up through 15 years of running that business, salespeople complained, but what we never saw is a drop in number of sales.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, over 15 years, if you add up the CPI, there needs to be some increase somewhere. So, as a given, raise your prices regularly.
We went from 7,750 was our first sale. Yeah. Actually, 6,750 was our first sale. Yeah. We then put it to 9,750. We finished at 20,000, 19,750.
Yeah,
and I think so we doubled our price.
I think the clue there too is if you're close enough to your customer and they're putting up their prices, take the opportunity to put up your price because it tends to be CPI driven, cost driven, all that sort of thing. So I think there's a lesson there. I think the pricing one can be difficult. We working through this price disparity, and I think the first thing is when we're engaging with companies and our other partners. We call it out. We're probably talking about calling it out at the beginning, because when we get to the end and we're surprised, there's not many places to move, right? Particularly if the customer considers the product's commoditised. They do the same thing. So you have to work harder, and you have to work on risk, and you have to do those type of conversations. But at the end of the day, because it's not our solution, and I think the big vendor that we're involved with need to make a call, because obviously the other vendor's buying market share, and that's just not something you can do much about as a services company. So and in fact the right move for us, we're not doing it anyway, if you're a customer listening to this, is to switch camps, right? And I think that would be a decision you'd want to consider as a CEO, because I think with all services and solutions, I think the challenge with premium, there's only so much that you will pay to go and see a Cirque du Soleil show. Like, would you pay $3,000 to see a Cirque du Soleil show? Probably not, right?
Probably not.
So there's a whole price elasticity in there that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
So it's complex, Matt. I'll let you know how we go.
That'll be interesting.
We'll test out some messaging and actually talk to our customers and have the chat. And I think anybody else that's in this position, because if we bring recession back into the dimension, like, would you go to your customers? Let's say it was all official, recession hits. And as soon as that's official, there's a whole heap of companies that are going to react in a similar fashion. They're going to lock down, right? Head freeze. Yep. You're not going to employ anymore, right? If you're in supply chain, you're going to go and see if you can lock down your costs in your long term. But if you haven't done it before recession hits, you're probably in trouble, because inflation anyway. And then you're going to go to your customers and say, how can we help? But everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. So I think having an execution plan ready to go once the news gets announced, if you never tick it in a drawer, never have to use it. And my thinking is you have to be aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's always been, once again, I'm not the strategic thinker here when it comes to overall business. I just want to help more customers, and I do discuss strategy with their company, but it's always strategy around their business and how to make that sale. It's not about their overall business strategy. I'm operating in that little window, and it's always, my answer is always aggressive activity into the marketplace and doing more, because that's always served me well. It's never been successful. I've never seen anybody save their way to profit, to more sales.
No, it's kind of like also understanding the value of who you are. For us, it's our people. So if I cut 20% out of my people line, I'm actually hamstringing the company and hamstringing the services I can add to customers, right?
Yeah.
So I'd rather go and take 20% out of my top line if I can get a restoration point. I can have an agreement.
Yep.
So, look, we're going to do this for this period of time. It's going to be hard for everybody. But if you agree for this to happen in the future, let's sign the deal and with our customers. And I think that might be a good play. I don't know.
I think that's going to work. I mean, that makes sense. And it also demonstrates back to the client that you respect them as part of your business process. It respects them and it understands that they're adults as well. Like, this is happening. Let's get in this together, because if it becomes a pure commoditized play, then then all they've got to do is work out the cost of change. Often the cost of change is so high that they stick with the current vendor anyway. But unless you recognise that and have a conversation about that, I think that there's going to be then the dissatisfaction level, because a sale or the, I guess the scales we're always working to is, dissatisfaction and vision of the future has to be greater than the resistance to change. Because if the resistance to change is lowered by price or movement, they go, well, I've just got to go and do something. And so that's the thing with actually everybody listening or watching has to think about what they're actually selling. And they're not selling a product, they're not selling a service, they're selling change. And if they're continually selling, if they understand they're selling change and the cost of that change, then they're going to be better off in their sales process and in their marketing process as well. But that was just a thought I had the other day.
I love that. Hey, Matt, I'll sign that contract with you and I expect nothing to change.
Yeah,
it's a bizarre thought, right? I get why it's a really good way to pitch it. I really enjoyed that. Hey, I've got a really fun fact for you.
Go for it.
The last time Australia was in recession, the Soviet Union existed.
Well, if Putin gets his way, I guess we'd have the Soviet Union again, won't we?
I hope not. This is disaster for the Russians, that's how it is in his ancient history for Australia, right?
Yeah.
So if we go into recession, there's not a generation of business owners and leaders that have been through it before, and they're probably all retired now. They'd have to come out of retirement.
Yeah, that's right.
You're young guys. This is what you need to do. But we've been talking about a lot in our board and stuff. And I think what I remember of the 80s when it happened, I wasn't in a leadership position, obviously. I was a kid out of school. But it was definitely, there was instant notifications for head freeze. Right? There was no one has any authority to employ anybody. There was an instant demand for cost-saving plans. And there was a go and lock up your customers. Go.
Yep.
There are the three things. I clearly remember I was working for an insurance company, and so it's different because they go and make sure your contracts are right and your customer service is good. But that company went under, by the way, not because of the recession; they just went under.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's fascinating, and you find yourself in this high inflationary period where we really need to be considering increasing prices, regardless of whether your strategy is competitive or specialty, but we're worried about losing customers if recession hits. So it is really, how do you work through that? Yeah.
Go sell more.
Well, this is the thing. The reason we may be in recession is because people are spending too much money. The freaking consumer spending in the last quarter is ridiculously high again, right? So yeah, people might.
Well, then we need to make sure that if we are going to try to sell more or bring more revenue in, there's always money around. And I find that people are. So this is in my little world, and maybe it's my, Steve Jobsian reality distortion field, is that very few people that I want to work with are price sensitive. And so, and actually, quick aside, I had a client that hadn't made a sale of their software for, I think, 4 years before I got there. Their software was just about 165 grand, and then they had services on top of that. Over the course of the time that I worked with them, we increased their major supplier contract, almost double the cost of that on a yearly basis. We changed their pricing model to being about that 165 a year rather than once off. And as I was leaving, they signed a new deal for $1 million for that first year, and they should be charging more. And so their customers were not price sensitive. What they were is they wanted safety and security, and the cost of not doing anything that I'd obviously, as a sales process, I'd had them to a point where the cost of not doing anything was too great and too powerful, too painful. And that $1 million was a cheap deal when it come to actually the whole process. So I don't want to work with people who are price sensitive. Now, I know that you and I are in very different market spaces, but whenever I find myself talking about price and being concerned about price on behalf of the customer, it's never a good result for the customer. Actually, for the customers that do have the money to spend, they're actually getting a way better experience with my business, way better experience in the marketplace, and they just make more money. But, it's we're looking at the same thing from different angles, I think.
Oh no, I wish all my salespeople spoke the same way. So, selling value, don't discount. But the reality is, it's a competitive marketplace. So there is no matter how good we are or our solutions are, the CEO is going to go, oh, I can't see 2/3 difference. I just can't see it, right? Unless there's something we can do that our competitor cannot. But I've got something to really had a thought bubble, so it's completely without notice. Good question, Matt.
Here we go.
Or thought about it, and we can park it for the next podcast because I think it's really interesting. When you talk to companies, there's two different mindsets. There's an owner-operator mindset, which is yourself, and you are the hero of the story. Okay, and you can earn a lot of good money. You can be very successful. You can grow a decent-sized team. You can do that. And then there's the scale and exit mindset. Okay.
Yep.
And they're very different things. Very, very, very different things on how you set it up. And maybe we can talk about that next time because it's a fascinating chat. Yeah.
Sounds great. Yeah. Absolutely. Love to. Well, look, that's probably a good place to stop. And there we go. Ended on a cliffhanger. We're learning from Game of Thrones. And so tune in next week for another exciting installment.
Quick poll. We've only two of us, right? Quick poll.
Yeah, that's right.
Game of Thrones or the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I'm watching. I haven't started the new Game of Thrones yet because I'm too cheap to spend $10 on binge. Terry and I,
have to get it on Foxtel, so it's even more. It's $25 a month. I hate it.
Really?
I hate having to pay that much for it.
No, I don't need another streaming channel. I got 4 of them, or 3 or 4 of them now, and that'll do me for the moment. I'll wait till the end of it. And I'll wait to the end of it, get a month and watch them all in one binge.
I wish I had done that. Oh, that's such good. And by the way, Foxtel, we think you're an awesome company, and if you need our services, please give us a call.
Yeah, that's
right. But no, okay. I'm wondering if there's a correlation between Apple and Android and Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. I think that'd be an interesting study. So, they have very different shows. I am watching them in parallel at the moment. Very different shows.
Are you? Okay.
I'm enjoying both. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, no, I like them both too. I just haven't. I just need to break the wallet open and get another streaming service.
There's so much going on though. You start running out of time. There are so many shows to watch, and it's just unbelievable. So.
Yeah, I've probably got an hour, not even an hour a day for TV these days. It's I've finished my day job at Tech Talk and then have dinner and then go jump on a call to the people in the UK about raising capital. So, it's I'm actually having tonight. I've got friends coming over tonight, so I'm having a night off, which is nice.
Very good, mate. I think we should call it there. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Yeah. Thanks, Daniel. Talk to you later.
Awesome, Matt. It's been fun.
See you, mate. Bye-bye.
You've got to press subscribe. You're not doing that bit.
Oh yes, of course.
That's right.
If you've enjoyed this episode. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe, like, comment, share, do all those things. If you've not liked this episode, say nothing and do nothing. We don't want your negativity around here.
Right. I can't believe we're talking about being professional services. People.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks, man.
If you're selling wheels, we can't help you. All right, talk to you later. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the CEO and Salesman podcast. If you've got a leadership, sales, or business question, we'd love to hear it. And of course, we'd also love to add our 2 cents on the subject. Tune in for next week where we talk about all these things and more. Bye for now.